So I wanted to talk about a few things to, these videos that I'm going to be making, next couple of videos, it's going to be for the psychologist, for the information, to fix, alleviate, give understanding. It doesn't matter anymore, okay? So, anyway, so I wanted to talk about two different things. First subject is about Robert Zarate and Melissa, who I went to a rave last hour and a half, 2 hours. I saw her there. I don't know if she's a transgender. I don't think that this person is, possibly. I don't know, maybe because I was on ecstasy. I never kissed her. I just held her hand. I was walking, out the door, and I already talked about everything. But anyway, just gave her a hug and I left, and we exchanged numbers. Y'all know the story. And when I got into the car with Robert, this is what Robert did. I don't know if they had cameras in there. And I talked about he walked right ahead of me, and he was like really upset. He was not upset. He was like disappointed. He was just really disappointed, and I didn't understand kind of really what was going on because we had a really good night. And we get into the car. We get into my brother's truck. I stole my brother's truck, my brother's red truck, and we're at the rave. This is wild because he's the one that brought up the idea to me, and he was like, "Man, why don't you steal your brother's? Why don't you take your brother's truck? Let's go take your brother's truck." And then so we stole my brother's truck, and I was like 16. Yeah, I was 16 at the time, and drove to Bronco Bowl. So anyway, but anyway, I get into the car, and he does this. And he goes, and he kind of sits in the car, and I knew you don't understand. There was only about 10 months of the entire lifetime that I just didn't communicate with him, or I only saw him occasionally at school, because I ended up being really active with some other friends and had some other shit that was going on. But occasionally I'd seen him, and I remember he had a growth spurt. And, but, when we get into the car, I could always tell, just knew him really well. And he looks at me. He didn't look at me. He kind of goes, and he's just thinking to himself, like he's pondering whether he's trying to figure something out or something. And he's looking straight, and he goes, "What's up, Hector?" This time we box occasionally. We're exercising. We bullshit. We bullshit all the time. And he just looks, and he goes, "What's up, Hector?" And he keeps looking, and then he goes, and I look at him like this, and I go like, "Hey, yeah, what's up?" And he goes, and he does this. He nodded his head a little bit like this, and there was no other communication that he was talking about. That this is one of the reasons why I think that Melissa could be a transgender. But and he didn't look at me, and he goes, and he goes, and he does that. But one of the things that I want to talk about is also, just to clarify, and then that was the end of it. I talked about that I spoke to Melissa over the phone and she sort of had this sort of phone sex over the phone, and I said something to reference of sex, We're 16, 17, 17, 18, we know what boys do. Or, the words some of the dumb words that are exchanged to reference to, hopefully, when you, in a private setting, that it'll lead to what a guy really wants, is sex. And I said something, and I heard her like a female, she was masturbating, like she was playing with her clit or something. And she said something like, "Yeah, I can go for a really long time," or something like that. But I could hear her voice, like it was sort of like, a little bit feminine, a little bit this sexual reference of that. Very lightly, it wasn't a full blown sex call or nothing like that. But I thought I wanted to talk about that because, in case there's unease, because there's nobody knows the truth of, unless there's recordings and, people start making up ideas and all this. I hope to God this person isn't a transgender. I think they possibly might. I don't even know. I still don't know. So anyway, I thought I'd bring a video on that subject slightly to talk about. Okay, so anyway, I want to talk about another thing, another transgender moment. Okay, so it's not something I'm interested in. It's not something I want to look into. This is something right before I got raped by transgender Patricia and everything that happened. I went to a club, and I was 27 years old. I was working for the federal government, and I went to Club Plush. This is where Randy Johnson, where I was a disaster, and how it was a booty call when I spoke to Randy Johnson a couple of times on text message. Never spoke to her over the phone. Without a doubt, I met her. She was very attracted to me. I was very attracted to her. And this is where I saw Jason Love at the club. Anyway, I went to Plush, went to go see DJ Heather and DJ Colette. These two blonde hair. She's a platinum hair white girl and a black girl. DJ Heather, one from Chicago. I think they're both from Chicago. And Colette obviously sings during her DJ sets. They did tours together for a couple of times. They toured together, to my understanding, where they played back to back at certain clubs. Where they went to clubs and they go to play. I don't know if they toured on. I don't think they toured on a bus or anything like that. But they went to the club, and she would play the peak hour, and then the other one would play the remaining hours or whatever. They had their tours, and they would play back-to-back sets, which is not very common because both of them are headliners. So I go there to watch. I see Eric, and I think Rosendo was there as well. When they get done with their DJ set, I go to the DJ the DJ booth is in front of me, but it's sort of on top. But I go to the very front. There's not hardly any people there, and DJ Colette and DJ Heather both approached me, and they approached me. I'm telling you right now, like with flying colors and everything, like they knew who I was. They knew who I was. Like there was not like I was a stranger. There's only two certain things that come to this presence to me. If someone engages, because you got to understand that, DJ Colette is a very attractive, pretty girl, right? She can go off to, get any guy they want. And so anyway, DJ Colette and both of them approached me, and it was like they knew me, but at that time I was really built, and I was working out, and I was young, and I knew, especially when I was young, I could fetch out women very well. It was just something that just really attracted. There's something that you can never explain when you're young, how women are overly juicing of attraction over a man. It's you can never get that unless you're young. You have to be a young male to experience that. I was working out, but there was two things that was kind of common to me, where I knew that I could get that girl easy. I knew it was open doors for me. Anyway, I'm not referencing Colette, but they approached me like, he's a good-looking guy, he's a man, he's a young guy, he's a potential for the future of, making strong babies, healthy as a man, become a father, girlfriend, sex, obviously all these, sort of, because I was probably one of the most built people in the entire club, because a lot of the times you go to the clubs, at least you'll find a couple of, the type of person, but obviously I fit in more of the category of someone who's probably not doing a lot of drugs, just took care of themselves really well. So when DJ Heather and Colette both approached me, they were walking, and I think Eric may have just started talking to them or chatting, and he was sort of to the right of me, up in front about 15, 20 feet, and I saw DJ Heather do this, and she goes, and I was standing there, and DJ Heather approached me, and I kind of like very greeting, like, oh, hey, how's it going? Like, oh, hello, and I watched, and she goes, and she turns around and did this, like she goes and did that, and I saw Colette looking at her, and I could see directly at Colette, and Colette looked over at DJ Heather and goes, like, there's an understanding that when heterosexual women know that, okay, they understand the transgenders, that they just whatever, born in the wrong body or whatever, or empathetic, they understand it. But there's something about heterosexual women that know what a price jewel is when there's a young man and don't want to be protective of that young man. It's something that is just irresistible. It's unlike anything, unlike straight men, what I'm talking about. And I could see Colette sort of defending, like, what are you doing? You know, you're not. And I've never met this, and I could see the kind of that expression. And then she looked at me, and she looked, and you got to keep in mind, not necessarily you don't know all these people. And I'm sort of very neutral and very kind of just, very neutral, just kind of, I'm not really blocking them off. I'm just kind of like a greeting nice, this is this person, that's that person, or whatever. And I noticed that, so I didn't know this, but I think DJ Heather, which plays some really good, incredible sets, Chicago music, along with Heather, is a transgender, and I didn't know that. So this is one of the things that, there was a lot of things that were going on that I don't know. Publicity, hype, any TV, because I don't know I don't think they knew who I was personally. Unless, but there was a lot of things that I still don't know what's going on with this whole world of entertainment and, publicity, trying to surprise me, and what a tragedy this ended up being, and they had to transform and change all the plans of everything because of what had happened. I've known that for a long time. And I wanted to talk about that because, I do still question whether Colette or what reason, because it's either because they knew who I was, very likely, because I didn't know what was going on with the sort of this publicity hype or surprise or something, or the other one also is because the attraction. She's a pretty girl. DJ Colette actually got married to the guy, American Pie, the funny, guys that, are in American Pie. Everybody knows the funny college and high school students, that are just like girls and want to get laid. Well, that's exactly the picture of one of the famous guys in there. I don't remember which, not the one that sleeps with the model in his bedroom, the brunette. It's another one. It's the one that I think is the one that dates the blonde girl, like the real pretty blonde girl, like probably the prettiest of all the girls of American Pie. And it's one of the main actors DJ Colette got married to in real life and had a baby with them. That was, I don't know the story. I don't keep up with too much of their life. I just kind of occasionally read off and on about someone's life, a biography, where they came from, or whatever it is, in Chicago music. Because Chicago made a lot of the best house music out there than any other place in the world. That in New York, but they had their own different sounds. Chicago definitely was a monument, because there was a monument of Chicago sound. Just like when you hear about the nightlife in New York and nightlife in Chicago, it's completely different anywhere than you'll ever experience in Dallas, you'll ever experience in San Francisco, or any other places. It's real vibrant. The culture is very different. The music, obviously, when you play like jazz, New York, because I listen to jazz saxophone, nightlife music, but not dance music. It's like classical, jazz, and it's kind of like when you're in New York or when you're in Chicago, and it's some of the best music, saxophones, trumpets, all is really great. Pianos, all sorts of instruments, but it sort of gives this dating feel, like when you're in New York, because New York, they always say it's like the best dating world and scene. My uncle Richard told me that. He goes, man, he goes, if you go to New York, he goes, when you go to New York, you're always coming across new people all the time. You meet new people all the time. You're meeting people. Everyone meets everyone all the time. You don't realize how many people you come in contact with in a single day. New people all the time. And people are always hooking up. So you hear these dates and stuff like that. And sort of in the movies that we watch, a lot of the movies that we see in New York, you have these beautiful girls and these sort of, Italian pasta restaurants, and, they have these dinners outside with, this sort of misty of a rain with old concrete brick laid out on the ground, and this city nightlife where you have all the interactions and people are just kind of minding their own business and everyone is doing something, and you're in this entire area experience the wonders of lights and entertainment all over the place because there's so much to see and do. Well, that type of music that you see in like sort of love stories, Valentine's Day stories and stuff like that, that's in New York, they make some of that music is very fundamental to that type of culture, just like it is in Chicago. Like Chicago had its own sound, very different from New York, and So anyway, I thought I would make discussions about a few things, but yeah, I'm going to talk about some other subjects.